Welcome to Asia Outlook. I'm Melody and I'm here to report the top stories from around Asia. Chairman of China National Pharmaceutical Group in Beijing on Thursday, Li Shenzhen, said China's vaccines for COVID-19 will be available and affordable to people around the world. A ceremony took place in the Chinese capital to launch phase 3 clinical trials for a vaccine in Peru. National health authorities in the South American nation have approved the trials, the latest in China's efforts to strengthen international cooperation in pandemic control.
它这是属于供这个健康人使用的，是预防。这个相当于就是要具有可及性，就是对全民呐、大众这个要有可及性。按照总书记在世卫大会上致辞中所说，就中国的疫苗研发成功和并推广使用后，要作为全球公共产品。对啊，要达到这个全世界人民要达到这种可及性和可担负性。
The World Health Organization on Tuesday said the planet is nowhere close to the amount of COVID-19 immunity needed to induce herd immunity. Herd immunity can be achieved by vaccination and natural infection. The more contagious a disease is, the greater the proportion of the population that needs to be immune to the disease to stop its spread.
This idea that, well, maybe countries who've had lax measures and haven't done anything will all of a sudden magically reach some herd immunity, and so what if we lose a few old people along the way? I mean, this is a really dangerous calculation. Responsible member states will look at all their population. They value every member of their society, and they try to do everything possible to protect health, while at the same time, obviously, protecting society, protecting economy, and other things.
Senior Chinese diplomat Yang Shiqi held talks with Singaporean Prime Minister Lee Hsien Loong during his 2-day trip to Singapore earlier this week. Yang said China is willing to promote regional and global peace with Singapore and other ASEAN countries. He also said China will work with Singapore to strengthen what they have achieved in the fight against COVID-19. Prime Minister Lee emphasized that the pandemic requires communication with each other now more than ever. Yang is the first and highest level of Chinese official to visit the Southeast Asian country since the pandemic was declared in March. India reported a record increase of nearly 70,000 new coronavirus cases on Wednesday. Meanwhile, a new study released on Thursday shows millions more could have caught the virus. Delhi's health minister, Satyendra Jain, said blood tests on 15,000 residents conducted earlier this month found nearly 30% of them had COVID-19 antibodies. Dr. Vikas Bajpai, an expert in community health, suggests developing antibodies is necessary for developing immunity, but it doesn't mean the capital is getting closer to herd immunity.
Tell us that the number of people infected with virus is far more than what the official statistics otherwise reveal. Secondly, developing antibodies is a necessary condition for developing immunity, herd immunity. However, whether it will ultimately lead to herd immunity or not would depend on whether these antibodies are capable of neutralizing the viral proteins, and secondly, how long do they last? If suppose they're lasting up to 3 months or 6 months, as some other studies have shown, then, well, that would be a highly unstable kind of a herd immunity, or should we call that herd immunity at all? So that is something which is yet to be found.
The United States has formally demanded the United Nations to restore all sanctions on Iran. This came after Tehran unveiled 2 new missiles with increased range on Thursday and declared that it's boosting uranium enrichment capacity. But the U.S. request has been rejected by its European allies on the Security Council. CGTN Li Ling Tang has more.
If Washington gets its way, all United Nations sanctions on Iran lifted under the 2015 nuclear deal would be restored in 30 days. And that's what U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo had hoped to achieve with his visit to the UN Thursday afternoon to deliver a letter to the President of the Security Council requesting the so-called snapback mechanism.
These restored sanctions will also reimpose accountability for other forms of Iranian malign activity that the authors of the nuclear deal foolishly downplayed. Iran will again be prohibited from ballistic missile testing. Iran will be back under sanctions for ongoing nuclear activity, such as the enrichment of nuclear material that could be applied to a nuclear weapons program.
But the question is whether the U.S. even has the right to trigger a return of UN sanctions, since it already withdrew from the nuclear deal back in 2018. Now, this has been the primary contention among other signatories of the deal, who have been desperately trying to preserve what's left of the agreement since the U.S. pullout. China and Russia have questioned the legal standing of the U.S., as has Europe, with the European Union's foreign policy chief having said that the U.S. is no longer entitled to reinstate sanctions. And right after Pompeo submitted the letter to trigger the snapback, America's European allies on the Security Council, Britain, France, and Germany, who are also signatories to the Iran nuclear deal, immediately rejected the move in a joint statement to the press. Now, they said that while they have concerns about an arms embargo about to expire in October, they still stand committed to the Iran nuclear agreement and cannot support the U.S. position. In remarks to reporters, Pompeo defended the U.S. right to trigger the sanctions snapback, citing vague language in the Security Council resolution that authorized the deal. Iran's ambassador, Majid Ravanchi, slammed Pompeo and called the U.S. move an arbitrary interpretation of the Security Council resolution, and also Pompeo's letter as inadmissible without legal standing and null and void.
The U.S. move is a clear example of abusing the process, which is prohibited under international law. This is nothing but a legal and political bully.
Now, the problem is there is no official way to determine which interpretation is the right one, which is why diplomats are bracing themselves for a major fight to play out at the Security Council over the next 30 days, with most of them trying to preserve the nuclear agreement. Li Ling Tan, CGTN, New York.
Indonesia may have the world's highest rate of child fatalities from COVID-19. At least 200 children in Indonesia have tested positive for COVID-19 since March. Over 300 children there may have died from the coronavirus by the end of July. about a month since Beijing recovered from a second coronavirus outbreak, and it is not just the cinemas, theaters, and museums. Other recreational venues are reopening as well, especially for the little ones. CGTN Li Kwang has more from Beijing.
Taking off masks and gathering for fun like this has long been anticipated by children in Beijing. They've spent a long semester mostly at home and are finally getting some fresh air before school starts in September.
I've been staying at home for quite long, and it's so much fun to play with friends today. I like everything here in the park.
We haven't been out much for half a year. As the emergency response in Beijing has eased lately, I'd love to take my daughter to nature as much as possible.
Beijing lowered its public health emergency response from the second to the third level a month ago, after recording 0 new COVID-19 cases for 14 days in a row. The leisure and entertainment industries have gradually come back. The pandemic has had a significant impact on outdoor activities for the younger generation, as well as on the entertainment industry for children. But to some, it's not a completely bad experience. The difficult time has also led to new ideas and trends. The Monsi Club, a jungle-like outdoor playground, has been popular among kids and parents for years in Beijing. Since the end of January, when the pandemic outbreak started, it has been organizing online activities for its members. With government subsidies, it made do and has even opened its third branch this month.
Since the park opened 4 years ago, we have been aiming at sensory integration training for children. In the past several months, we promoted many online indoor activities and found that physical exercises and art training can be perfectly incorporated into children's education. So we developed art courses in the park when we reopened. It turns out that young visitors really enjoy playing instruments or draw in the natural environment.
To many parents, months of cabin fever meant spending a lot of time with their kids. Some say that this experience helps them rethink about how they could better spend leisure time together, and outdoor activities are among the top choices. Li Qiong, CGTN, Beijing.
Stay with us as we bring you more news on Asia Outlook. Health experts recommend breast milk for infants in the first 6 months after birth. But some mothers have difficulty producing enough breast milk. CGTN Miro Liu has more about this from Singapore.
While companies work on developing infant formula that mimics mother's milk, one Singapore startup has joined the field trying to make cell-based breast milk in the lab.
What we essentially do is we take the cells, we put them in a customized media, which converts them into milk-producing cells. Now, again, we take these cells and put them in a different kind of media, which is called lactation media. This media induces them to lactate, and that's how we get our milk.
Analysts estimate the global market for cell-based or cultured meat to be worth over $15 million by 2021, and Turtle Tree hopes to ride the coattails of this growing food trend.
We want to be able to disrupt the entire industry of dairy, which is $700 billion industry. Our technology is a platform. It covers the way of creating milk for all mammals. So that include cows, sheep, goat, camel, and even human milk.
However, health experts are calling for more transparency in the lab's methods.
So for me personally, as a health specialist, I do not agree, and also I would not recommend it. So we need more information. I think the team should release more information in terms of the research and development and the safety before health professionals like myself can make a decision.
Turtle Tree Labs faces 2 other challenges: consumer adoption and regulatory compliance. The Singapore Food Agency says so-called alternative proteins are a developing industry, and thorough assessment of novel foods is necessary before they hit the Singaporean market. Turtle Tree Labs says it aims to team up with big dairy companies to bring its lab-grown milk to a wider audience. And much like cultured meat, it's worth watching how the cell-based milk market will or won't take off. Miro Lu, CGTN, Singapore.
Transparent public toilets, illuminated like colored lanterns and with other daring architectural design, have begun to proliferate through the streets and parts of Tokyo. Designed by a Pritzker Prize-winning architecture firm, the two sets of toilets located in Tokyo's Shibuya district are part of the newly launched Tokyo Toilet Project. 17 public toilets will be renovated by the summer of 2021 as planned. Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi has met with his Indonesian counterpart Retno Marsudi in South China's Henan province. The ministers announced the launch of a fast lane between the two countries. It aims to facilitate personnel exchange during the pandemic, maintain industrial and supply chains, and help with economic recovery. Wang said China supports enterprises engaging in all-round cooperation with Indonesia in vaccine, research, and application. While Retno says Indonesia agrees to maintain exchanges between the two countries and is committed to working with China to safeguard peace and stability in the South China Sea. South Korea has reported its highest number of daily new coronavirus infections since early March. It reported 297 new infections on Wednesday, the sixth day of triple-digit increases, bringing the total cases to over 16,000. Most of the new cases are in the capital Seoul, with more than 450 linked to the Sarang GL Church. CGTN Jack Barton has more from Seoul.
In the past, this time though, there are new difficulties. In many ways though, it is resembling what happened back in March when the Shincheonji religious group in Daegu, a big infection began at their congregation. Initially, the group wasn't very cooperative, didn't give out membership information, made it very hard to track down members who they'd been in touch with. This time, it's a variety of churches in the capital and around the capital, Seoul, but one in particular, the Sarang GL Church you mentioned before. To say they're being uncooperative would be a massive understatement. Their leader led a big demonstration of thousands of people against the government on the weekend. He's since tested positive for COVID-19. He blames it on a government conspiracy. Other members from that demonstration have tested positive, and today more than 7,500 police who were giving security there also had to get tests. They're still waiting for their results. Now, members who have been quarantined, there have been cases of them jumping out the hospital windows. There's still 800 of them who are in hiding. They're actively trying to track them down, and they're actively hiding and spreading this through the community. So, it makes it really difficult. The government has added those restrictions, closing down a list of 12 venues like singing rooms and sort of other venues where people gather together in tight spaces. Also a maximum 50 people to gather indoors, 100 outdoors, and a whole raft of other measures. On top of that, they're very quickly trying to set up emergency facilities again, like the ones back in March. In fact, some of them are the ones they used back in March to get thousands of beds in preparation in case this gets much worse. The expectation is it will, because back in March, Daegu was down in the center of the country, and they were more cooperative, that religious group. This time, we have a high level of uncooperation in the capital, Seoul, where half the country's population is roughly 25 million people.
The video of a Wuhan water party in the post-epidemic time became a heated topic on overseas social media as netizens expressed envy towards life in the central China city going back to normal. In a video posted by AFP, partygoers in swimsuit enjoyed an electronic music festival at a pool in a water park in Wuhan on a summer evening. Wuhan was badly hit by the coronavirus epidemic and then locked down for 76 days since late January. Now has the epidemic under control with no new local COVID-19 cases reported for months. China's Gaofen 7 imaging satellite has officially gone into service, and it promises to be the most advanced in the series. It's the country's first civil-use 3D surveying and mapping satellite and can produce highly detailed images and data in real time. The Gaofen 7 was launched last November but underwent rigorous testing. It's being hailed as a milestone for China. Let's take a look.
The Gaofen 7 combines cutting-edge multispectral cameras with a highly precise laser system to capture 3D images with a resolution down to the decimeter level. That makes it the best in the entire series. The Gaofen 7 completed its in-orbit test review on July 23rd this year, finally making it ready for in-orbit delivery. China says it will officially be put into use for land surveying, mapping, urban and rural construction projects, and gathering statistics. One example, Gaofen 7 can provide high-quality data for entire fields of crops, providing detailed information on how they are distributed.
Some types of food surveillance should be strengthened in the face of COVID-19 this year. Monitoring shows this year's rice crops in the south were very cultivated and matured earlier than usual in Jiangxi, Hunan and other southern cities. The Gaofen 7 satellite provides more accurate data resources and reinforces our inspection and statistical work.
In terms of the urban environment, Gaofen 7 can also play a role in recognizing the height of objects from the ground, meaning better building projects.
In terms of urban security and the transformation of old residential areas, the Gaofen system can help accelerate construction.
With only a handful of developed countries currently having comparable satellite mapping systems, the Gaofen 7 is expected to improve China's ability to survey and map large-scale construction projects. 朱龙洲 CGTN.
Dr. Michael Ryan, Executive Director of the WHO Emergencies Program, said at a news conference that the WHO is still trying to learn about how the coronavirus spreads and who is more susceptible to the pathogen than others. Let's take a listen.
So this virus has a long way to burn if we allow it to. It may move in certain populations more efficiently depending on behavior. It may move in certain populations depending on whether people are spending more time inside or outside. It may return in colder periods. It may do many things. But the one thing I think we have to remember is most people, the vast majority of people, remain susceptible to this infection.
Harry Potter and his friends are once again working their magic in the Muggle world. From black wizard robes to the golden snitch necklace, fans in uniforms and badges representative of the 4 houses of the Hogwarts school. Gryffindor, Slytherin, Ravenclaw, Hufflepuff flocked to cinemas nationwide over the past weekend in what many describe as Hogwarts school reopening days.
我的是格兰芬多学院的魔杖，也是赫敏的一个魔杖。
神奇动物在哪里的那100年以前的那个款式是欢院的。
我们俩都是格莱芬多学院的，
是我们斯莱特林学院的蛇院的校服，然后这个魔杖也是马尔福少爷的魔杖。
Harry Potter, Harry Potter, Harry Potter, Mr. Potter。
欢迎回到魔法世界。
Did you ever make anything happen? Anything you couldn't explain? You're a wizard, Harry.
I'm a what?
是幼儿园，应该是3年级的时候，我哥介绍给我的。
2000年左右吧，就是《哈利波特》1到3部，引进到中国中文版的时候。
我是2001年魔法师上映，因为我有一个初中同学长得特别像哈利波特。
我从小学的时候10岁开始，正好就是哈利波特刚进入中国的时候。
妈妈说《哈利波特》这部电影很受大家喜欢，我想看看是我喜欢不喜欢。
邓布利多最喜欢的还是哈利波特，
我觉得这是霍汉穆迪。
最想成为的话是赫敏，勇敢很有能力。最喜欢角色是马尔福少爷，所以我今天穿的是一身蛇院的衣服。
我特别喜欢双子，就是韦斯莱兄弟，我很喜欢他们身上那种反叛的不畏世俗的精神。我几乎每年要看好几遍，尤其是第1部像魔法师，对我来说就是意义重大。
我本人也是一个哈迷，有女儿以后也是想从小培养这种爱好，然后今天带着她一块儿来看一看。
技术进步很大了嘛，3D IMAX， 还有就是 4K 修复的这种，就非常希望在大荧幕上再看一次。
更宝贵的是，很多哈迷在一起去欣赏它，更有心灵的共鸣吧，应该。
一个小时候的情怀吧，毕竟小孩子都喜欢有魔法类的东西。
首先，我从小就很喜欢这种魔幻的题材；其次是它里面这种的世界观，非常新奇，非常在当时来说还是很有创新性的。然后后来慢慢的，它其实的主题是非常深入的，里面不光有包括很多人性的描写，有友情，有爱情，还有很多宏大的世界观，关于战争啊、和平的反思。
通过这个电影，你学到了很多，要勇敢。要积极，要努力前进，要相信小伙伴，这个它带给了我们很多正能量。所以通过这部电影，给我更多的就是一种积极向上的一个信号。所以在我的工作生活中，每当我遇到困难的时候，我会想想这个电影中的很多场景，所以一定要坚持，坚持到最后肯定能取得成功。
你小的时候看的内容跟大的时候看的内容是不一样的。小的时候你看到的是那些，比方说这个魔法世界都那么 fancy 啊，都华丽啊，然后那些想象啊，这些西方的这种跟我们东方不一样的东西。但是大了之后，你发现你看到的书里面的东西其实是如何关于爱情、关于友情、关于生活、关于生命、关于善良、关于邪恶，人生意义上的东西。所以说就是它会在不同的年龄段，然后你看到不同的这种，就是你的关注点不一样。
友情、勇敢、信念，对一个不一样的世界，然后一直有一个就一直相信它的存在。
勇敢、友情、坚强、执着。
青春回忆。
无论你遇到什么问题，在霍格沃茨都能得到解决和帮助。
我们说就是其实生活是很苦涩的，但是我在里面呢，就当我能够做到的时候，我从里面稍稍的脱离出来，然后去看一些我觉得快乐的事情，我觉得是给自己一个心灵的放松吧。
守护神咒，所以我把它纹在了这，护神护卫，我觉得就是它对我全部的意义，就是它会守护着我的所有的美好和所有的梦。
And that's all we have for today's Asia Outlook on MI Radio. Thank you for being with us. We'll be back next week. Until next time.